Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 189. Now, we are joined by a very, very special guest today, all the way from the US. We're joined by him today. And if you're listening on the day of release, this podcast will be going out on Friday, the 12th of April. So as it is released, we are actually, Pete and I will be in person with this person who is going to be over from the States. We'll quickly say hello and then I'll do a bit of an intro. We're joined by Mr. Tim Anderson. How are you, Tim?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
I'm very, very good indeed. Yeah, it's kind of strange because we're talking to you now, and on the day this comes out, we'll actually be with you in person, which is going to be fantastic when you and Dan John come over to England for a great weekend. So Pete and we'll be together as well, Pete. So which will be nice.
We will. We will. I just want to say
like...
as well, on the day of recording in the UK, it's National Peter Day. I found this out this morning. Imagine that. I've got a whole day just for people calling Peter.
Oh,
wait, so I was just about to ask you what that meant, but it's just for people called Peter.
Apparently so.
Okay.
I found it out 21st of March, with the day we're recording this, it's National Peter Day. So I've been wishing everyone a happy National Peter Day.
I wonder if there's a day for everyone. Is there a James Day? Is there a Tim Day? I don't know.
I have no idea. All I know is, you know when you get like Mother's Day and Father's Day, and you're like, well, when's Children's Day? And it's like, well, that's every day. Yeah. You know. Little did I know, and my parents kept this quiet, that there's a Peter Day, because otherwise I could have had another boatload of presents when I was younger. You know what I mean? Not that I was very materialistic or anything, but you know.
But what you're saying is there's every day is not Peter Day then, by that logic, right?
No, I only get one, and everyone else gets the rest of them.
Okay, excellent. So it is, like I said, episode 189, and it is going to be, well, it is Tim's third visit with us. So if you've not listened to the previous episodes that Tim has been with us on, I'd really highly recommend maybe listen to this one and then go back to those ones. First time, like I said, it's 189 today. First episode Tim joined us on was episode 37, where we really kind of got introduced to Tim and original strength and all things kind of movement and everything that Tim does. And then episode 172 was when Tim came back on with Dan John, and they were talking in general about training and things, and also about this weekend that they've got coming up, which we are doing this weekend at Unique Results in Chelmsford. So this is Tim's third visit. Before we dive into things, just a quick check-in with Mr. Peter Lamp. Well, it's Peter Day, so he must be happy. But is everything okay with you, Pete?
It is. It's great. Yes. Good. It's absolutely fantastic. I've had a productive week, put it that way. I've done loads. As you've seen, I'll not say what I've been doing, but I've been doing lots of stuff. I'm well
good.
Happy.
And I think it's the first time on a podcast. Are you wearing a blue? Is that a blue cap or a black cap that you're wearing?
It's blue.
Yeah, we're both wearing blue caps. You've got is it an Oakley one? Is it?
Yeah. I've got a red one of these as well. It's not like I'm sponsored by them or anything. I like the red. I brought the blue one and then I was like, oh, they've got a red one. I quite like that.
And I'm wearing a Superman cap in honor of our guest, because he's a huge Superman fan. So I'm wearing the Superman cap for Tim. And today what we're going to talk about, I mean, as a framing, Tim has got a new book that comes out on April the 2nd. So like I said, I think it's April the 12th as this podcast goes out. So the book is available now. I'm holding it up if you're watching on YouTube. It's called A Simple Book of Strength by Tim Anderson. It's an advanced copy that Tim very kindly sent me. I have read it cover to cover. And Tim also sent Pete a copy of the book, and it will be arriving the day after we record the podcast, I'm sure, as will be the way.
Send it by carrier pigeon, so mine's not here.
So Pete hasn't got the book yet.
I tried my best to have it arrive on National Peter Day, but it just didn't work out.
It might very well. You never know.
It might
That's
arrive
true.
one day. But imagine if it turned up while we're recording the podcast.
That'd be brilliant, wouldn't
That'd
it?
be brilliant, wouldn't
It'd
it?
be like, right, just pause there and I'll just read it first.
So we're going to be talking about the book, A Simple Book of Strength. And I'm going to start because I did share a quote last week, I think it was, which I loved from the book. I always kind of read books and make notes of things, and then I send them to my wife Steph and ask her to do like canvas and make them look nice, and she does a great job of that. So the quote was, and this I think it would be a good sort of springboard for us to start from, but I absolutely loved it. So the better you move, the better you feel. The better you feel, the stronger you are. Remember, it feels good to feel strong, but it feels even better to know you are strong. And that was a quote from A Simple Book of Strength. So maybe Tim, to start off with, just talk to us a little bit about, you know, why you wrote the book, or where the book started, or what was the inspiration behind the book, and then we can kind of have a chat around it as we go, if that's okay.
Yeah. So honestly, it kind of just started as an idea that would not leave me alone. It was just something that was in my head, you know, and it turned out that like every other day I would just be thinking about it. And so usually, and that's really how any book I've ever written has kind of just been like that. It's just an idea that keeps pecking at me like a woodpecker. And they usually don't stop unless I sit down and try to write it out, just to get it out of my head. So that's really how this started. And I mean, so for some reason I was just thinking about strength training a lot. And so I just started sitting down, and then that's just kind of what happened.
Because it's not like I think you say in the book as well, you kind of say, look, if you want to dive into bodybuilding or powerlifting, you know, this isn't the book for you. But what I really liked was it is a simple book, but a lot of the actual programming side of it and the actual exercises, if you like, and the techniques don't come towards the end of the book. A lot of the book is really about, I suppose, what it means to be strong and what strength is, and the different facets of strength, and why strength is important, and how we can tap into it, and all that kind of thing. Because I think that you know, there's thousands and thousands of books out there about specifically, you know, pumping up your pecs or getting bigger biceps, or increasing your deadlift or whatever. But this is really a much more, it's almost like a call to action to normal people or everyday people to kind of tap into their strength, isn't it? Is that kind of a fair kind of
Yeah,
way to sum it up, I suppose?
absolutely. Like, so, the strength world is really, I think it's geared for like maybe around 1 to 2% of the entire world's population. Like, you know, bodybuilding, powerlifting, all the stuff we used to read in the muscle magazines, like that was really geared for just a very small, you know, percentage of our population. But everybody is designed to be strong, and that allows us to live our lives well, you know. So like we're all designed to have strength, and really the essence of that book is that you're as strong as you want to be. You may not realize it, but you also may not have access to that strength. So really it's about gaining access to what's already inside of you. But we're all designed to be strong. And I think it has been, at least in my entire lifetime, strength training has focused on, you know, such a small percentage of people. Like, we're not all designed to look like comic book characters, you know, being muscle bound and stuff. And honestly, though, the people that end up looking like that, their lives, other than that temporary glory that they get, it doesn't necessarily make their lives any easier. You know, like they have muscles more for show, but not really more for a go to live their life better. So I think that's really, yeah. But to answer your question, like this book is really for everybody that just wants to live their life better.
And I mean, yeah, sorry, go on, Pete.
I was going to say, it's funny because we were talking on a call I was on last night about health and what does health mean. You know, and you might see that on some on social media and stuff like that. Most, like, people who are muscular and all of that, and they're like, look, and it's deemed as more healthy, isn't it? Or some people can look at it and think like that's what healthy looks like. But you can look like that but have an unhealthy mind, if you know what I mean, because it's like fighting the demons in your head and stuff like that. So that's what I mean. I haven't read the book, obviously, because I haven't got it yet, but I will as soon as I get it. But like we've spoke about this sort of stuff before, but the kind of concept of, well, it's fine to look like that, but if it's because of something else, it's like the quote that James first come out with, it's better to just know that you're strong. And then there is a look that kind of goes with that anyway, isn't there? It doesn't have to be ripped. It just looks like you carry yourself really well. And then that projects you into the world as a different person, doesn't it?
Yeah. So confidence itself is strength. So I firmly believe that we are body, soul, and spirit, and strength permeates through, like, if we're strong in one, we're strong in the others. Like it permeates all of us, because we can't separate any part out of ourselves away from ourselves. Right. So, but to be strong in body does make you stronger in mind, because it gives you a level of confidence, and when you're strong in your mind, you're also stronger in your emotions. So it just makes you, overall, it allows you to live your life better, because you're not just physically strong, but you're also mentally strong. You know that you're capable. And so, because you can't separate one thing out from another, if you can approach it from any angle. If you know that you're capable, then physically you're going to have more access to the strength that's inside of you. If you don't know you're capable, or if you doubt that, or you're afraid that you're capable or not capable, then you're not going to have access to the strength inside of you. So strength is whole. It's not just it's not just over here in one part of you, it's in all of you.
It's interesting.
And what I find amazing about that is it can happen in a moment as well. Because I heard you on another podcast talking about the grandma who lifts the car and stuff like that. But the flip side of that is you can walk into the gym one day being super strong and just be having a bad day and think that looks heavy. I'm not going to be able to pick that up today doing whatever it is you're doing, and you might not be able to. So it actually works both ways. So the mind is a huge part of it. Yeah,
absolutely.
I was just going to mention, Pete, because I don't know. It's just come out today, I think. We've mentioned this before when we're talking about the way people look. In some ways, certainly in today's world and social media and things, being more important than what they can do. And we spoke about this before when you have updates of films. I've not watched it yet, but the new Roadhouse film comes out today.
I watched the old one yesterday. I've only seen it once before and I thought it was rubbish. So I watched it again yesterday and it was great.
So I watched the first one, the original, with Patrick Swayze, which was from the I think it's about
1989.
89. So I was going to say about
Sam Elliott as well. Sam Elliott's amazing. What a guy.
Yeah. So I watched that with Steph the other day because she'd never watched it before, and I knew the remake was coming out. And when you watch the original Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze in that. I mean, I'll take it, Tim, you've watched Roadhouse, have you, before?
Absolutely, about 10 times.
Good. I thought you would have done, but I thought I'd just check.
Hurts, don't it?
Yeah. Because in that film, I mean, Patrick Swayze in the late 80s was kind of like heartthrob, was meant to be like the kind of the epitome of sort of cool and everything else. And when you watch the movie now, he's not very muscular in that film at all. He's very he does Tai Chi almost, but then the remake, like I say, it only came out today, so I haven't watched it yet. But the Jake Gyllenhaal and Conor McGregor are in it and stuff. And Jake Gyllenhaal in that is absolutely ripped to shreds, and he's got an 8-pack and he looks like so jacked. And you kind of think, like you say, this it's more about whereas I just liked the 1980s one because it was cool, because he just looked like a normal guy, and that was the thing, wasn't it? Everyone he meets, they kind of say, I thought you'd be bigger, and he's just kind of like a normal guy. So no, I just thought, because I can't remember what film we spoke about it. A few films, didn't we? When they do updates nowadays from old films, you realize how much I suppose the aesthetic of being strong has now shifted to higher expectations of men's bodies and physiques and women's bodies and physiques, I'm sure, as well. You're going to say something there. Sorry, Tim.
I was just going to use Wolverine as the perfect example. Because,
that was it. Yeah, that's the one we spoke
Hugh Jackman in 2000, when he first played him, was like, he looked like me now, right? And that's what Rip looked like in 2000. And also just things like what's his name, Scott Bakula in Quantum Leap. If you've ever watched that, he was like the heartthrob in that, and he wasn't ripped or anything, but like he'd have his shirt off working on a farm, being some farmhand or something in the 1950s or 60s or whatever it was. And he just looked like people do now. You know, your average normal person, because now it's like Tim said earlier, you don't like, you know, being built like a superhero, but superheroes in the 80s weren't built like they are now in films. Certainly, like Superman wasn't like Christopher Reeve's Superman, for an example. I mean, he was big for the day, but he's not by today's standards at all.
So we have, I think, created some type of a gap. Like we had this idea, you know, of what strength looks like physically, like aesthetically. And really, I think it looks like the old Greek sculptures. Like, I think that's exactly what it's supposed to look like. But anyway, but there's a price to pay, right? So like we have this idea of what strength looks like for like a bodybuilder, or even what it looks like in the movement of a power lifter. But there's always a price to pay with that. Like, is it actually healthy to look that way? And is there a price to pay for the wear and tear and the load and the volume that you're putting on the body? And then is there a mental, like, so your body, you've never had a thought that your body doesn't know about. But a lot of bodybuilders are insecure. Like they don't feel necessarily confident. So they end up with like a type of dysmorphia, like they're not big enough, they don't look good enough. They look amazing, but to them, they don't, you know, and I think that pushes people to try to get bigger, 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 even though they already looked awesome. And same thing with powerlifters. I know that's a sport, but for some people, they're never satisfied with, because they haven't lifted enough yet. Like they're always reaching for the next PR or the next weight. But there's a price for that. And I think they also miss, well, how much is enough? What is the amount that's going to make you feel like you're strong enough? So it's just, I don't know. I think there are gaps in strength for people.
Because there's always, with the bar, like I say, powerlifting, you can always add 5 more pounds, can't you? You're never gonna beat the bar or the weight. You can always add, because they even just make longer bars now, don't they, to put more weights on, you know? So you can always add another 5 pounds. Or with, you know, bodybuilding, or the quest for ever more leanness, you know, with people. For most people, you know, you can always get another percentage of body fat less. You know, you can always lose another pound or another kilo, you know, and it's so I think that your approach and the book, A Simple Book of Strength, is it's a sensible, balanced, pragmatic, and I think it's an aspirational sort of view of strength, but it's also a very accessible view of strength, isn't it? In terms of what you're suggesting people work towards, or some of the programs you use and things, it's very kind of lifestyle and movement based, rather than looking at external loads and chasing numbers and things like that.
Yeah, I think I know, I mean, you know, I know that we're all designed to be strong. Always. We're designed to live our lives well. And I do think that there is a marriage or a union with strength and health. I think that we have seen extreme versions of strength that actually lead to being unhealthy. But for the most part, every single one of us is designed to live our lives well. And what does that look like? That might look like being 80 years old and being able to still go out for a hike in the woods, or playing with the grandkids. It may mean feeding yourself and being able to walk up and down your stairs in your house without pain or without fear of falling. Like, you know, so there's all these qualities of strength that we are designed for. And again, how we feel and how we move and how we think are tied to our ability to tap into that strength and to express it. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, other than that is something that we were all intended to have throughout our whole lives. And if we honor our design and just show up every day and engage in it, then we'll get access to it.
It's funny because it's all on a spectrum as well, isn't it? Like everything is, but you can be weak, you can be super strong, and then there's a band in the middle where it's like, well, if you're this strong or this strong, anywhere in between that is good. And not necessarily being on the higher end of strength is better. So it's somewhere within that, and it'll be different for everybody. But this is what I love about your stuff. Like I say, obviously haven't read the new book, but it's so accessible to everybody, because it's like, I mean, the Press and Reset book, that first one that you had, I bought so many copies of that and just dished it out. Like I'd just go onto Amazon. Someone had mentioned something, bit of a mobility problem or whatever, and I'd just go onto Amazon and send them that book. And I gave so many copies away because I buy it myself and then give it to someone and then buy another one and then give that to somebody as well, because it was like, just, I think when you came over in 2017, Roger said the same as well. And he said he was trying to develop something to give to his patients in his clinical practice. But he just said, just do this. He was like, this guy's done it already, so just do that. So I'm assuming it's like that in this book as well, just like super simple stuff to follow. Yeah.
And to your point, like, life happens in the middle. Life doesn't happen in the extremes. And you can't maintain the extremes anyway. But yeah, if we're going to be successful and we're going to feel good, that is in the middle. So it's not too much. It's Goldilocks. It's not too much. It's not too little. And that's basically the economics of strength. Like, this is funny. Like, when I went to college, I took all these economics classes, and they didn't mean a thing to me. But now, like 30 years later, looking back on them, I'm like, oh, they mean so much, but not just financially, because everything has an economics to it. Like, everything is supply and demand. So if we create the demand, the body will create the supply. But if we don't create a demand, there is no supply. So the body, as far as strength training goes, is essentially ask for what you want. And if you ask your body for what you want, it will give you what you're looking for. But if you don't ask it for anything, you're asking it to have nothing, which is going to be weakness, pain, misery, sadness, depression, whatever. All those things run together because we're all bound and tied together.
I also think we're oversupplied at the minute, aren't we? Technically.
Well, depending on what we're asking it for. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, so the ask really comes from our day-to-day lives or our habits. That's the ask. Like, that's our version of asking. Like, so showing up every day, like even something like rolling around on the floor for like press and reset. If I show up every day and I roll around on the floor, I am asking my brain to feel safe. I am asking my brain to keep my body fluid and supple. I am asking my brain to keep my body having exquisite balance just by showing up every day. Now, if I don't show up every day and I don't roll, I am asking my brain, or telling my brain, that I don't need those things because I'm not asking for it anymore. And so it says, well, Tim does it. Tim's not showing up. He must not need these qualities anymore. We don't need to give them to him.
We've spoke before, haven't we, Pete, about if you do something, and this ties in perfectly to what you're saying. We've spoke a number of times, I think, Pete, haven't we, about if you do something every day, it's very unlikely you'll wake up tomorrow and you won't be able to do it suddenly.
Correct.
Outside of like a big trauma or a motor accident or something. So whether it be, some people, they brush their teeth standing on one leg, to work on their balance. Or we've spoke about, putting on your pants and your socks standing up, rather than sitting down. And that still sticks with me, that one. Or if you're talking about, going out for a 30-minute walk or whatever, if you do it every single day, or if you roll or if you crawl, very unlikely you'll wake up tomorrow and you won't be able to do it. But like you say, if you haven't done it for 6 months or a year, or for some people that I see, they've maybe not tried something for 10 years or 20 years. They obviously go to try and access it, and obviously they can't because they've stopped asking their body to supply it, I suppose. So I love that analogy of the supply and demand and asking for what you want it's so you can see it, can't you, every day, especially with people like us who work with people.
Yeah, no. So, and you hit the nail on the head. Like, so if somebody doesn't do something for 20 years, it's not that they don't have strength, that they're not strong. It's access denied. So if they want to do something and they haven't done it in 20 years, they need a lot of strength. Their brain's like, nope, access denied. It's not that it's not in there, but they just they haven't been using it and haven't been like keeping those neural circuits and connections sharp and efficient and ready to be used. So they have to lay the groundwork again and reestablish the foundation to gain access to it.
I think that what was I going to say in terms of the access denied and it kind of taps in, I suppose, to we've spoke about as well before a number of times about patience and strength and allowing, not being impatient, not wanting results, not wanting things to happen too quickly, and also where Paul McElroy's phrase or saying of strength isn't built, it's granted by the nervous system. And I've noticed recently with you, Pete, watching your pressing, for example, with the kettlebell, you just seem to be like almost like on a weekly basis or a 2-weekly basis, you're making these huge jumps, but it's not like you're not actually able to, you can't build strength that quickly, can you? It doesn't increase that quickly to go from being able to do something 5 times to being able to do it 10 times. It's somehow, it seems to me, looking on anyway, that it's almost like the nervous system's taken the brakes off and now you're suddenly able to do these things. I mean, how do you feel, Pete, with that? I can see Tim's nodding.
I would call that a lagging indicator. So if you're not familiar with that, or you know what it is, but if you're not familiar with that terminology, it's basically the work you've put in. So for me, it's the work I've put in for the last 3 years working with Paul has allowed me to do that. If I hadn't done that 3 years, I wouldn't be able to make the progress that I'm making right now. So so the lagging indicator can be thought of what Paul had said about building the pyramid, building the base of the pyramid wider, which we've spoke about before as well. So that's why. Yeah.
But it's suddenly this. Yeah, sorry, Tim. But it's you feel like it's suddenly. But it does seem like suddenly you've been given because of all the work you've done. You've suddenly been given access to a lot more strength.
So this goes with what Tim was saying and has said on other stuff as well. Is the central nervous system's taking the brakes off, but that's because I put the work in. So joints, ligaments, tendons, all of that are happy with that now. So it's kind of like it's not being overprotective. So what Tim spoke about before is like, the people who lift the car off the person who's underneath. You told a story about that, I think, on might have been Mike, the podcast you were on, said it about someone was actually there and saw it, because you hear these stories, right? But you've never seen it yourself, right? I remember you saying that. And what was I going to say? So yeah, when you're talking about the strength is within you, that is already there. Because I'm not really much bigger than I was at all. I'm nowhere, not at all. I weigh about 1 kilo more than I did about 3 years ago, but the power to weight ratio has gone right up, or the strength to weight ratio has gone right up. So it was always there. It's just not being accessed. And I mean, what's the percentage? You might know this, Tim. I don't. I know it's low, but the percentage of potential that you actually use, your muscular potential, is something like even in a well-trained individual, it's like 40 or 50% or something, or maybe it's not.
Yeah,
even that.
it's ridiculous. It's low. And another great example of the potential is if a person gets electrocuted, their muscles can contract so hard it breaks their bones.
Yeah.
Well, we can't. So that means the strength is definitely in you right there. Like it's there, but we don't have the access to it. Like if you wanted to willfully try to contract your bicep as hard as you could, you're not going to snap your humerus, because you don't have access to all of it, which the electricity would be full access to it, because which is out of your control. But yeah, so that to me is a great highlight that we don't have access to our full capacity. But to what you're saying is all the work you've put into it, you've shown up enough that you have really developed and built your nervous system up enough and your tissues where now access is granted for those things that you like to do to become so much easier.
I love that access denied that you said, and then access granted. That's just, those kind of that metaphor, if it's a metaphor, it just kind of rings true, doesn't it? Like you go for something and it's access denied, and then you go for it. Because I did, just as a real example, I was meant to be doing some kettlebell pressing on Saturday, this yeah, so literally 5 days ago. And I was meant to be doing sets of 7 on each side with a 28 kilo. And it just wasn't, like you said, Pete, it just wasn't there. I'd done deadlifting beforehand. I'd also done like a spinning class earlier. I hadn't eaten anything. I was kind of just went to do it. And I think I managed like 5 on my left and like 3 on my right. And then I just messed, and I just thought, I'll give it. And then I did it again yesterday, and I did it and it felt great, you know. And I'm not any stronger than I was on Saturday, on Wednesday, but just it was access denied on Saturday and access granted yesterday. You know, it's yeah. I mean, how do we? I know it sounds obvious because when I say it back, I think, well, I've done deadlifts before. I've depleted myself or whatever, but still, there would have been the strength there. Maybe that was more mental fatigue and mental tiredness rather than physical, because there was definitely enough strength there to do it. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
So I think there's the holistic nature of things. So your brain is always asking one question always, every millisecond of the day. And if it does not get the answer it's looking for that question, it's going to shut down your ability to express yourself. Strength is an expression. Your output, your power output, that's an expression. So your brain is always asking, am I safe? And if it gets the answer that I am not safe, it starts to regulate and down-regulate how the body can express itself. So it's not that the strength wasn't in there for you to do those presses and like normal or like you should be able to, but your brain is also smarter than we are cognitively. Like, you know, we have thoughts, and often our very own thoughts will betray us and tell our brain that we're not safe. So if you go into something thinking, man, I'm tired, well, you've already given the message now that I'm not safe. And your brain knows that, because remember I said when we started this conversation, you've never had a thought that your brain doesn't know about, right? And that thought is information. And if that information seems to threaten the health of the body, the brain's going to downregulate. The other thing is that you don't know is the neural fatigue that maybe the deadlifts had already caused, but that the brain is aware of. And so it's probably scanning your body like it does. And it says, you know what? That took some energy. I'm tired. I don't have as much glycogen as I did 5 minutes ago. And so it knows that too. And it says, well, I'm not safe. I'm gonna throttle back so that James can't, because it's trying to protect you. Like its job is to help you survive to be able to press tomorrow. It's not always worried about now, because it's worried about now as much as is this going to hurt or is this going to be okay? But it wants to make sure you're around tomorrow, that you can eat and, you know, do the things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is what's brilliant, right? Because we talk about what does it look like in 20 years, loads as well. And like all of this stuff comes together. We've been doing this podcast long enough now. We've pretty much said everything over and over again, haven't we? But I love that, because the brain isn't looking at now. Well, it is looking at now, but it's looking at now in context of how long you're going to, like tomorrow and the next day, and how long you're going to live. And I love that, because I know that I think that the biggest fear that the brain has is change as well, because it just doesn't like everything has to, as long as everything stays the same, you're safe, right? But things don't stay the same, like minute to minute, hour to hour, second to second even. But what James was talking about there, I had the same last Friday. I didn't finish my session because I had a go, but I was like, it doesn't feel right. And I'd had a cold the week before, and it had been rumbling on and stuff like that. But what I love about that is it's kind of like the metaphysical part of it, isn't it? Which is, you know, or the spiritual side of it or whatever, is there's all this stuff going on that you're totally unaware of. You are totally unaware of, but your brain knows it's happening. But then you can't explain it. And that's when people try and beat it as well, don't they? They'll just go, sod it. I'll just beat, whatever it is, I'll just smash through it. And it's like, you're just putting yourself at more risk, more danger, I suppose, or your brain thinks you are. But then next week, it might be totally different. So, you know, that's kind of one of the things. I don't know. I think you mentioned last time, Tim, you kind of do intuitive training as well. You don't really follow you said your training was a hot mess. I was seeing
It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess.
But then it's just, but you're in tune with your body enough to know what feels right and what feels doesn't on the day, I suppose. So how do you, like, is that true? How do you manage that?
I try, well, so because of my idea of the economics of strength and knowing that we're designed to move and show up every day, um, even my hot mess is still, it has a loose structure to it.
Yeah.
Like I know every day I'm gonna nod and move my eyes and head. I'm gonna roll around on the floor. I'm gonna rock back and forth. I'm gonna do some type of crawling or gait pattern work. I know every day I'm gonna pick something up, even if it's only my body. I know every day I'm gonna walk, and do these things because I want to always have access to my strength when I need it. And I really want it when I'm 80. I want to have access to it then. So I'm trying to lay the ground. Really, I'm trying to make my roots like your nervous system. Imagine it was a tree. I'm trying to dig my roots so deep and so healthy that my tree, it will always be strong and it can express itself in all the ways I want it to, right? And that's really should be the goal for all of us because that's the design we've been given. Um, and if we just honor that design, and by the way, that's one of the reasons why Dan John's Easy Strength is so brilliant because you're just showing up every day, practicing 5 movements for 10 reps a day, right? If you did that for a year, that's 3,650 reps per movement for each 5 movements. That is instant access to those neural patterns and circuits when you need them. And it's never overtaxing, it's never overstressed, it's never foreign, right? But you're just chipping away. You're saying, hey, I want to keep this. Thank you very much. Hey, body, I love you. I want to keep this. Thank you very much. That's the routine, but that's really how we're designed to be.
So would you say
your roots thing, I've just thought of an analogy for your roots thing. Because obviously if you a tree's roots it'll grow further down if it can't find water, right? If it's been dry, they'll just go and find water. But the other side of that, and I think this is where a lot of people go to, especially if they haven't done anything for ages, and then they go, right, I'm going to start training again, is the overwater. So it's been raining every day here for the last 3 months, right? I've said this before because it's getting on my nerves now. It hasn't rained today, so we're all right. But that's where you start to see there's been trees falling over, like a little bit of wind, and then the tree will fall over because the ground's soft. It's not growing its roots further because it doesn't need to because there's enough water around. So therefore, it doesn't have the foundation to support the structure. So, like you say, it's kind of a happy that's another spectrum, isn't it? So it's somewhere in the middle again. It's a happy balance of like, well, I'm going to grow my roots further down, so I'm going to take a little bit of that water away, and grow my roots further. But then I'll be able to grow higher above. And there's the iceberg analogy and all that stuff as well. So it's like, I think that's where
it's
people
almost
can go
Pete, as
wrong
well,
is
like
trying to overwater it. Yeah.
it's almost like you said earlier as well, the pyramid, the base of the pyramid being as wide as you can, then it allows the structure to grow tall. You could use that for the roots as well, couldn't you? The roots kind of spreading out deep and wide to create a more solid base for the structure. Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting. I mean, what would I'm going to ask you kind of an either or question, and we've done this a few times actually recently, and a couple of times we've said, well, it's both. So I mean, in terms of strength, because that's what we're talking about at the moment. What is what balance do you see between actually building physical strength? So if we were now talking about something that most people can relate to, in terms of, like, say, a deadlift, picking up weight off of the floor in a deadlift, where is the balance between the kind of the neurological kind of the central nervous system releasing the strength to be able to lift it? Because you said you already have as much strength within you that you'll ever need. It just needs to be released or granted access to. So what's the percentage of the lifting that's neurological, that's the nervous system releasing that strength, and a training effect to actually build physical strength to lift it? Or is the benefit of doing the physical strength just making the body feel safe so that it releases the potential to lift more? Do you know what I mean?
I kind of do. They all run together though. So like, and standards are sticky. Like I think it can be a trap to let one man's standards for strength determine your strength.
Mm.
Because there's only one person that can answer the question, am I strong or am I not? And that's you.
Mm.
Like, so I think it's a slippery slope when we start comparing ourselves to standards. But and you get into this weird thing too. Well, again, how much is enough? What's going to add to the quality of my life? And then where's the point where economics, the margin of diminishing returns. Like now I might get to a level, say deadlifting, that I can lift so much and it no longer adds to my life. And maybe it no longer takes away from my life, or I'm not at the point where it's so much that it's detrimental. But then, like, why though? Why would I continue to be just on the edge? Because maybe it's the edge just doesn't feel good. Like, so I do believe there's this, I have an idea that there's an optimal way to load your body that feels good. Like there's a weight, James, there's an amount of weight right now that if you deadlift it, actually makes you feel good and invigorated. And there's a guarantee you there's an amount of weight right now that if you try to deadlift, it's not going to make you feel good or invigorated at all.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's finding that, and there's an art and a curiosity to strength training, which is where you get to really explore and you find that balance with, I'm going to show up and I'm going to play and learn. So it's not, people get stuck in this routine of checking boxes, and strength training can become mindless. And then it can also become a form of punishment. But if you approach it with, no, I'm designed to be strong and it's my birthright, and I'm going to play and learn from my body and learn from the movements and the weights and the loads, well, then you're coming away with knowledge, and worst case scenario, you're just going to feel good. So there is this balance though of, well, how much is enough and how much makes me feel good? When it comes to loading patterns, if the pattern gets prettier, chances are you're on the right direction. You've got the right load. If it invigorates you and you feel better, you've got a really good load. If it starts to degrade your pattern and the pattern doesn't look as pretty or as smooth, the loads, you're stressing, you're overtaxing, and the pattern is breaking down. So this is a sticky answer, but it's just this balance of exploring. But the thing is like, say you only say James, that your deadlift number is 185, that makes you feel amazing. Only 185 pounds. It's something like on a scale of 1 to 10, it might be a 5 or a 4 for you. But if you show up every day and even if you only lifted at 10 times, I guarantee you, if you needed to deadlift 300 pounds one day, it's in the tank. It's just there. If 185 is completely effortless, but it makes you feel good, 300 is in the tank. So
that was an interesting thing you said there. You said if you needed to, not if you wanted to, but if you needed to.
If you needed to.
Yeah. Because you don't need to on it like an average Saturday, do you?
No. And grandma does not want to lift the car off the child. She needs to. And that's one of the reasons she's able to, because now her thoughts are not getting in the way, and it's not negative information. She's not going up to the car, I can't do this. She's going up to the car, I have to do this. And there's a difference. The information is different.
She doesn't want to do it on camera though, because she'll get a load of people going, you shouldn't round your back like that.
That's right. Well, and that's why no one knows that Clark Kent is Superman. So, I mean.
No, I love that the quote I opened up with, and this bit it can easily be missed, I think. But the way the conversation is going at the moment, where it's the better you feel, the stronger you are, and because I know from coaching people, as soon as someone, and again, it's that question, or is it safe, or am I safe? It's the second that someone starts worrying about, and this is a conscious worry, not an unconscious worry, because they can verbalize it and express it. But the second someone starts thinking, oh, I'm getting in my own head here, I'm getting worried about my back, or I don't want to injure myself, and that's a very conscious. And the second anything like that is said, you just need to stop, don't you? Because the body like you say, the brakes just go on hard, and and what should be easy is no longer easy. It's, and what was easy yesterday or what was easy 10 minutes ago is no longer easy. It's almost like the brakes get put on, that the handbrake goes on, it's like,
Yes. And that's where like we have to be careful. Like, so we can't go in, like, especially if you're trying to lift heavy, if you're lifting, truly lifting weights, if you approach it with fear or doubt or negativity, you're setting yourself up for an injury, actually. So, converse also, if you approach it with a lot of stress going on in your life, like where your nervous system is already unsafe because maybe something's happening to a loved one, maybe something's happening to something beyond your control that is just wrecking you emotionally on the inside, that is not the time to pick up something heavy. You are already under attack. Your brain already feels so unsafe. That is the time you will get in. That, for me, from experience, every time I've ever been injured has been during a time of emotional stress, not physical weakness. But I had physical weakness because I was under emotional stress and I did not have access to my strength and I was not listening to my body.
Yeah. Is it possible to, like the whole no pain, no gain mantra, and people who voluntarily put themselves through a training session or a workout that is grueling and uncomfortable and even painful? Is it possible to kind of, I'm not suggesting it's a good thing or that people should do it, but because people do injure themselves in training a lot. So in certain types of training, for example, if they're going really high intensity and kind of high skill movements, doing them to fatigue or under extreme fatigue, and they're going to get injured, the body is allowing them to do that. But have they somehow cheated or overridden the kind of nervous system in a way where they see that the pain signal and the hurt is a good thing? I mean, is that possible that people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
An easy example would be somebody doing a HIIT workout. Okay, remember I told you earlier, you can get in the trap of checking the box. So a lot of us become mindless when it comes to what our body is trying to tell us. So let's say somebody's doing a HIIT workout and they're exhausted, but they are determined that they're going to beat their time, or they're gonna finish this set, they're gonna finish this round. But while they're doing it, they're starting to mouth breathe, and they're not paying attention to their own cues. Well, mouth breathing tells the brain, I am under danger. I am in trouble. And so now they're trying to do something heavy. Maybe they're trying to do like some rapid number of snatches with a bar over their head or something, but they're mouth breathing like crazy. And they're telling their brain, I am unsafe. The other thing they're doing is now, because they're mouth breathing, they have taken away the stability of their spine. The diaphragm is no longer supporting the spine and keeping them strong from the center out. So now they've ignored the cues, but they are determined to override what their body is trying to tell them, and they pursue anyway. And then it sets up the stage for injury.
It's interesting that we did that. That was on Pavel's strong endurance or whatever it was, and there was like 5 red lights that he had, and one of them was like reps are slowing down, and one of them was like you stop nasal breathing, you start mouth breathing, and all that. And that's it's like there was like a hierarchy of them. It was like the reps start to slow down, but they will do. But like if they start to really slow down and you're great, like that's when you want to be careful, or you want to stop. Sorry, and then like mouth breathing is kind of like a little warning, but you can go a little bit further, but then stop and not take it to the extreme. Because obviously you can then increase that as well, right?
Yes.
So you can get people who can do HIIT training all the time.
So, but the key to that though is not pushing through the pain or the warning signals. Yeah. The key to that is being able to push the warning signals away through patient practice. Yeah. So it's not no pain, no gain, because that sets you up for trouble. It's get uncomfortable and then make the uncomfortable comfortable, because you can be uncomfortable but not be in threat and in pain, because there is no strength without being uncomfortable.
I love this topic, right? Because the amount of people that are like, get out of your comfort zone and all that, right? In all walks of life, right? But doing it in strength training is particularly dangerous. But you can still be in discomfort but safe.
Yes, absolutely.
But there's nuances to that, right? And this is what like Paul talks about with like expanding your comfort zone to engulf the goal that you're going for without actually trying to push the goal. You just push, right. You just grow the comfort zone. but you can still be. So I was thinking about this just when you were saying that, because my training is uncomfortable at the minute. I'm knackered at the end of it, but I've built that up. It's something I wouldn't have been able to do 3 years ago. I wouldn't have been able to go anywhere near it. So it got me thinking there, like I'm not thinking, am I doing the right thing? Because Paul's writing my program for me and he knows what he's doing and I trust him. But it's kind of, it always makes me think about it. So that's where I think people misunderstand the thing of comfort, because they try and stay way within comfort and not actually progress anything. And then there's the other side of people who try to like hit training or whatever, try to get out of comfort or get into out of their comfort zone and end up injured without the kind of the waving of the load, I suppose, you know, the waving of the intensity or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like we were talking about just a second ago, like if the load is too great, how do you know when it's too great? Because the pattern changes, it's no longer pretty. Well, a slow rep when they were fast is the pattern is changing. So it is a signal, but most of us don't see the signals. We don't realize, hey, we're mouth breathing. We have exceeded our diaphragm's capacity to maintain nasal breathing. We have exceeded our conditioning, our level of conditioning. We're starting to exceed it because we can no longer maintain nasal breathing. And if we would honor those cues and respect them and then throttle back, or rest just like maybe 30 seconds longer, whatever, so that we can go back to what we're doing, if we go back to it at all, you know, to maintain the nasal breathing or to regain the speed in the rep. But most of us don't do that. And it's just not a bad thing. Like if that's how you learn, that's how I learn. I mean, you know, I learned through my mistakes, hopefully.
But that's huge, because Dan, I think Dan said that last time about the diaphragm, but put your tongue in the roof of your mouth, and I remember that from pressing reset as well. And
change your life forever.
It makes all the difference. All the difference.
Change your life forever, right there.
Yeah.
I had a lady in with me earlier today, actually, who she's fairly new at the gym, and she's in her 50s, and she's really hyper. She's really kind of like, you know, attacks everything like a bull in a china shop, you know, like, and if I'm trying to explain something, she almost just wants to get on with, you know, she just can't seem to relax at all. So I got her today trying to do laying on her back, and you know, when you put one hand on the upper chest and one hand on the belly, and you're trying to breathe, and you want the hand on the belly to go up and down and the chest to kind of stay still, and I got her to close her eyes, and she couldn't do it at all. You know, like this, you know, like she thought she was doing it, but her chest was coming up and down like this. I could see it, you know, and I was like, just can't, I said, this is homework. You need to try and go away and relax, because I turned the music off in the gym and just tried to get her. She was first of all doing it with her eyes wide open. I said, look, just close your eyes. And I said, at home, turn the music off, just 10 minutes, do this. And then she's like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know. Because some people, and she's one of these people, she used to be a runner as well. So she's used to probably the no pain, no gain, the push yourself, the constantly just on it. And that relaxing or that slowing down, I think is so important, isn't it? It's like so many people in today's society, especially, I'm sure, are hyper, you know, it's like the kind of ADHD kind of, you know, the mind's going all the time 100 miles an hour, the body's going 100 miles an hour, the body's under stress all the time, which is why you start with breathing, don't you, Tim, with the resets and in the simple book of strength as well. The breathing is that's the breathing holds up everything else. There's no cell in your body that's not affected by how you breathe. And it upholds everything, not just your cells, not just your immune system or your digestive system, but it upholds your emotions and your thoughts too. There is nothing about you that is not being held up underneath your breath. So if you don't have that, everything at no roots. your roots are going to be shallow and dried up.
Yeah. But that's the way you talk about it as well, isn't it? Like is breathing is the first movement pattern, because it's the first thing we do when we're born. Yeah.
And I think people say, don't they? They say you can survive for, you know, you can probably survive for weeks without food. You can survive for days without water, but you can't last more than a couple of minutes without
air.
Yeah, without air, without breathing, can you? So that is the, that is the most important thing. Yeah. But no, people don't, and I don't say people, I mean, in general, me, everyone, until you become kind of a little bit enlightened or you become exposed to this kind of thing, breathing is probably something that 98% of the population never gives a single conscious thought to.
I think it's because, I mean, think about it. Like breathing. I've been breathing all my life. Why do we,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're alive,
obviously
you're
I
doing
know
it
how
right.
to do it.
Yeah. If you're alive, you did it.
I think though, when you experience that, how you breathe can help you move better or take away your pain or allow you to pick up something easier, or like until you experience the power in your breath, I understand why it would be a hard sell. But once you experience it, it's no longer a hard sell. It's sign me up. I'll show up every day and do this.
It's interesting because whenever I get touch wood, I don't really get injured because of how I train. But I've got previous injuries, right? So like I've got a tight left shoulder. But when I do breathing, so you can think like I'm breathing into my shoulder, which obviously you can't do, but you can think you can think of it in that way. And that always just lets me know, right? That is where, because when you're like, oh, it's tight, it feels it now. Oh, hang on, it feels tight here. No, now it's here. But if you just like relax and breathe into it, like that's where the tightness is, and you can kind of almost pinpoint what the problem is. And then, because I always think like if you go to see like physio or someone like that, it's like you've got to describe the problem and everything, and it's all about what you're saying to them. Whereas if you can become more in tune with your body and just breathe into it, you can be like, actually, I know where that is. And you don't need to know what it is, but your brain now knows where it is. So you can think, right, that's what I need to relax. And it kind of gives you that feedback. I don't know if that's a load of bullshit or not that I've just said, but that's how I think of it.
That's how it can very much work like that. And that's wonderful because, all right, so what is tension? Tension is your muscles holding fear.
Yeah.
So if you can breathe into the area and let that area know it's okay, and then a lot of times you can exhale tension away. And so like, hey, it's okay, we're good. And you can reinforce that with breath and thought. Hey, I'm good. We're healthy. We're strong. We're good. You can breathe into that tight shoulder, and then when you exhale, you try to let that tension, that fear fade out of that muscle to set it free. So there's definitely something to that.
I love stuff like that. I mean, my girlfriend Sean had she hurt her neck last year. She's fine now. She hit her head off a granite mat. I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing, but she hit her head off a granite mantelpiece standing up. She was putting something in the bag and just whacked her head. And then after that, she felt just pain down her arm and all of this for months, 6 or 7 months afterwards. And over, like, she was trying to get a doctor's appointment and all that. It's all screwed over here at the minute. And so she ended up having to pay to go and get an MRI because we've got social health care over here, as you probably know. But they wouldn't send her for an MRI, so she had to pay to go and get one. And she was in pain every day. She was on painkillers. We've got hundreds of pillows around the place now. She bought this pillow, that pillow, a V-shaped pillow, and everything. They're everywhere. And after the MRI, she went to see the guy. He was a surgeon, and he just went, the damage that is there doesn't correspond to the pain that you're in, because she had like a slight bulging disc. That was it. And she's 47, so that can happen anyway. Because she used to be a swimmer when she was younger. Like lots of things that she used to do when she was younger. It could have been there forever. But it's because she was just permanently like, I can't move because it'll hurt and I'm going to cause more damage. And then as soon as he said, it's not like that, she kind of
She was healed.
She just
was healed, right?
Oh, okay. And she hadn't breathed out for like 6 months. And, within a week, it was like 90%. She was getting better and better and better. And I think I find that fascinating because your brain is just so clever.
It is. And she learned that she wasn't damaged.
Yeah.
And then she was able to let go of the thought that she was damaged. And then that fear from that thought left her muscles, and then her neck became well again.
Yeah.
That's it.
That astounds me every time. just things like that, stories like that. Because
One of the
obviously
most
the brain, like you say, it detects threat. And if you break something or you've injured something, it thinks it's threatened forever until you tell it different, right?
So one of the most important sentences I ever heard came when I needed to hear it. And it was amazing, and I'll never forget it. And I heard a doctor say, pain does not mean damage.
Exactly.
And when he said that, it liberated me from what I was dealing with at that time. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it. Pain does not mean damage.
That's
because it doesn't.
Yeah, because tissue damage, I learned this a while ago as well. Tissue damage is within 3 to 6 months, it's healed. And if there's still pain after that, it's in your brain. That's it.
Yeah.
But try explaining that to someone in chronic pain, and it doesn't work.
And that's why you show them how to breathe and let the pain go away.
Exactly. That is.
I was watching. What was it I watched or listened to the other day? Oh, it was Lane Norton on Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, and he said something very similar where he said, you know, pain, like you say, pain doesn't mean damage, or doesn't, you know, the level of pain and the level of injury don't necessarily correspond, you know, because someone could be in a huge amount of pain and actually they have very little or next to no injury, and someone can have a really severe injury and have next to no pain, you know. So it's such a like you say, a kind of murky kind of thing where but if you think you're damaged and you think you're in a bad way, that tension, like you said, Pete, from Sean, it's yeah.
Well,
and then that becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it, as well? Because if you're constantly, like you say, tight and elevating your shoulders and holding tension all the time through fear of pain, that does create additional problems, doesn't it? You know, on top of the initial pain that you're trying to avoid. So yeah.
Well, there's the story that I've heard loads of. You know, the guy who gets the nail through his foot. He's wearing a boot and he's on a building site or something. He gets a nail through his foot and he's in absolute agony. And then he goes to the hospital. They cut his boot off and everything, and the nail's gone. There's no blood, no nothing. It's gone between his toes. But he thought it had gone through his foot. And there's another thing, a YouTube video that I'd say to watch because it's hilarious, and talks to exactly this. And it's a guy called Lorimer Moseley. He's an Australian guy who's a pain specialist. He probably wouldn't call himself that, but like there'll be another term for it. But that's basically it. And it's called Why We Feel Pain. I think it's called Why We Feel Pain, a YouTube video, and it's him telling a story about standing on a stick in the Australian bush, but it turns out to be a king brown snake. So he nearly dies. So the next time he's out in the bush, he stands on something and he goes into complete agony, and he stood on a stick. So yeah, it's amazing.
I've seen that firsthand. I used to be a firefighter, and we went to a call where a guy stuck a pitchfork through his foot. And when we got there and started trying to take his shoe off and everything, the pitchfork was between his toe. He was fine.
But was he screaming? He thought
they called over here. You know, you dial 911 to call for a fire department and rescue and ambulance to come out and help you. Like that's how scared they were. But when we got there and got everything situated, he was okay. He was. I mean, there was not. He was lucky.
Oh dear! Oh, that's fantastic.
There's a thing that Lorimer Moseley talks about. Actually, he says they use VR, like VR goggles, and they put VR goggles on a person. I'll see if I can explain this properly. And VR goggles on a person who's standing opposite someone else, but they're looking at the someone else as if it's them, right? So it's confusing the brain already. And then what they do is hit the other bloke's, like put a pinprick in the other bloke's hand or something. So you go, ow. You go, where does it hurt? And you go, well, in that guy's hand there. Do you know what I mean? So it's not even you, it's someone else. So it hurts in your brain because your brain saw someone else's hand get pricked that your brain thinks is you. So it's fascinating.
The brain's amazing.
Yeah,
no way around it.
Love it.
Excellent. Oh, well, Tim, thank you so much. I mean, we haven't actually, but I mean, like I say, the actual training / programming section of the book is really good and is really applicable for everybody and is brilliantly described. But we've not even touched on that today, because I think that actually probably the bigger points and the bigger topics, the kind of overarching principles of the book, we've kind of talked about a bit more, which but I would highly recommend. I presume people can just go to, can they go to like Amazon and stuff, or where would they to get? Yeah.
It's available on Amazon or anywhere else they want to buy a book from.
Excellent. Cool. So yeah, by the time you listen to this podcast, the book is available. So it's called A Simple Book of Strength by Tim Anderson. And like I say, I highly recommend it. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait for, well, I can't wait to see you this afternoon, Tim.
I know we're doing some weird time travel.
Yeah.
I want to say to all our listeners as well, I'll race you to see who can get a copy of the book first. Because mine's already on its way.
Yeah.
It's coming on Peter Day.
Yeah, it's coming on Peter Day. Brilliant. No, thank you so much, Tim. That is fantastic. And like I say, really looking forward to spending the weekend with both yourself and Dan John. I think it's going to be really special. We've got about 26 people coming for the weekend.
Wow.
We've got like a meal out on the Saturday night planned, and it's going to be great just to spend a whole weekend with yourself and Dan, and loads of other great people who'll be coming from all over the UK and from Europe as well. We've got a few people coming over from different places, so no, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. If people haven't listened to the other two podcasts you've done, I'd highly recommend they go back and listen to episode 37 and episode 172. And if this is your first time listening or meeting and listening to Tim, and you want to give him a follow on social media and things, what's the best place, Tim, for people to keep up to date with what you do?
I would probably go to my YouTube page, which is the Original Strength YouTube page. That's got all the videos and movements and stuff like that. You can also go to originalstrength.net if you want to see, like, interested in other books I've written or our other training programs.
Excellent. Brilliant. And if you're listening on Friday, because people will be listening to this on Friday, traveling to meet you this afternoon. So that's another kind of time travel thing. So if you're listening and you're on the way to see us, we'll see you soon. But yeah, no, that'll be a fantastic weekend. And like I say, highly recommend the book, A Simple Book of Strength by Tim Anderson, available online. Just type it in and it'll come up on Amazon or whatever. Pete, anything you'd like to say as we kind of wrap up?
I've said plenty. Sorry.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, Tim, again, thank you so much. Been an absolute pleasure. Really looking forward to spending the weekend with you. Love the new book. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about over the weekend, and I'm sure we'll have you on the podcast again, in the not too distant future. So thank you so much for joining us again, Tim.
Guys, thank you for having me. And I look forward to being with you for real today in person and doing some fun stuff.
Excellent. Brilliant. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so. Do follow us on like Instagram, do find us on Facebook, do subscribe to us on YouTube as well. It all helps us get out there. And like I say, we do pick up new listeners, new watchers every week, which is absolutely fantastic. And that was episode 189. We're back next week, actually, episode 190, with Alicia, who is kettlebell juggling. So and that's all fantastic stuff. It looks amazing. And he's going to be with us next week for episode 190. He's from I think he's North London, I think. Alicia, North London. So he'll be with us next week. And and obviously next week, no, we won't. I'm getting ahead of myself. In a few weeks, we'll be able to talk about how great a weekend we had with Tim and Dan. It won't be next week. It'll be a few weeks' time on the podcast, but we will speak to you soon. Take care, guys.
For everyone listening out there, that was James's brain in massive threat. Live on the podcast going, oh no, I've talked myself into a corner.
It's not safe. It's not safe.
It's not safe. It's not safe.
Denied.
It'll probably be in about 5 weeks we talk about this weekend. Okay. We'll see you next week. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Land, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.